They sold my dead wife's locket for beach money. Then the pawn shop told me the secret. Inside, it could burn my whole family to the ground. My name is Isaiah Carter. I'm 69. And this morning I opened the top drawer of my dresser in my West End bungalow in Atlanta and found an empty velvet box where my late wife's necklace should have been. The box looked back at me like a witness, cream satin hollow as a lie. Laverne wore that gold heart every day for 41 years. I promised her I'd keep it safe. Today is her birthday, 3 years gone, and I'd planned to sit quiet with that locket in my palm, let the weight of it call her back to me for a while. Downstairs, my daughter Monique was barking orders over the clatter of pans. The TV in the den boomed with Darius's sports shows. My granddaughter Kayla floated through on speakerphone, complaining to a friend about how Atlanta is dead and how much she missed Miami. I sifted socks, patted pockets, checked the closet shelf, the bathroom drawers, beneath the mattress, even inside my old shoebox of Polaroids. Nothing. Hands shaking, breath tight. I climbed down one careful step at a time. "Monique," I said at the kitchen doorway, soft like I was approaching a dog I didn't trust. "You seen your mama's necklace?" I got the sigh first. The one she's perfected since they temporarily moved in after Laverne passed and never left. "Daddy, I'm busy." "It's important. The locket. Check your room. You probably misplaced it." "I checked," I said, keeping my voice level. "Twice." She set the knife down like it offended her, finally turned. In her eyes, I saw no warmth, just calculation. "Fine. I sold it. Carter's pawn off Auburn Avenue. We needed money for Kayla's spring break. You said no." For a second, the kitchen tilted. "You what?" Darius called from the den, without looking up. "It's just jewelry, Zay. Folks die. They don't need jewelry." He took a lazy swig of orange soda. Kayla rolled her eyes, bright nails flashing. "Granddad, you're being dramatic. Mom did what she had to do." My mouth turned dry. "Your grandmother wore it every day for 4 decades. It's the last thing of hers I can hold." "Circle of life," Kayla chirped, waving me away. "Somebody else gets to enjoy it now." I walked out before the cold anger in me turned to something worse. Back in my room, I set the empty box on the bedspread, picked up my phone with hands that suddenly weren't shaking anymore, and searched Pawn Shops Atlanta. I called them one by one, describing the chain, the heart, the engraving. "Fly with me, L&I, 14K. The first woman yawned no. The second put me on hold forever. The third shop had closed. The fourth didn't answer. I kept going. The sixth picked up on the second ring. "Carter's pawn," a steady voice said. "This is Mr. Boudreau. I'm looking for a gold heart locket," I said. "Sold yesterday by a woman in her 40s. Name's Monique. Might have come with a cheap plastic bracelet, too." A pause. "Yes, sir. I remember that piece. Beautiful work. Are you the husband?" "I am. Widower. I'm sorry for your loss." His voice softened. "Sir, there's something you should know. When I cleaned the piece, the locket popped open. Inside it was a tiny rolled note. Numbers. Looked like bank info. I put it in an envelope to keep safe." My throat closed. 41 years, and I never once opened that heart. "Can I buy it back?" I gave the seller $800. Fair value's closer to $1,200 given the gold and craftsmanship. "But I'll hold it for you." "I'll pay the 12, I said. "I'm on my way." I didn't say a word to the people using my house, like a hotel. The day was winter bright, the air sharp as a blade. Auburn Avenue storefronts rose like old family, brick and solemn. Carter's pawn had bars on the windows and a bell that jingled like a memory. Inside smelled of leather and metal polish. Mr. Boudreau was a compact Creole man in a gray vest, spectacles perched on his nose. "Mr. Carter," he said, already reaching beneath the counter. He unwrapped soft cloth, like opening a baby's blanket. Laverne's heart caught the fluorescent light, and for a moment I saw her brown collarbone, the delicate pulse at her throat. I counted out $1,200 in cash. He slid a small white envelope across. "The note," he said. I didn't read more than a glance. Figured it wasn't my business. "Take good care of this one." I nodded, voice gone. "Thank you." I made it as far as the parking lot of a soul food spot on Edgewood before I had to pull over. In the glare of the February sun, I set the locket in my palm, found a tiny indentation I'd never noticed, pressed, and the heart sprang open with a secret sigh. Inside, rolled tighter than a promise, was a sliver of paper. Laverne's tiny service nurse handwriting, neat as stitches. Atlanta Federal Credit Union, Box 1936. The world went quiet. My wife had worn a bank key around her neck and never told me. I sat there long enough for the dashboard to heat my knuckles, then closed the locket, slipped the chain into my shirt like armor, and drove home. They didn't look up when I passed through. Darius still draped over my good recliner, my 30-year anniversary present from Laverne. The seat molded to my body, his now. Kayla's laughter cut bright and careless. Monique's voice carried from the back, planning something urgent and expensive. I went straight to my room, closed the door, took 2 breaths, and pulled Laverne's death certificate from a fireproof box where I keep titles and the baby bracelets we brought home from Grady Hospital in 1981. Atlanta Federal's downtown branch rose glass blue on Peachtree, cold and efficient. The lobby was marble and echo, folks in suits flowing around like determined river water. The woman at the help desk wore a name tag that said Chantel in curling script. She had the kind eyes of a patient person. "How may I help you, sir?" "I need to access a safe deposit box in my late wife's name," I said, laying down my driver's license and the death certificate. "Box number." My fingers found the envelope and the sliver of paper. 1936. Chantel checked the documents, typed with quick certainty, and nodded. "The box is active, last accessed in 2019. You're listed as surviving spouse. We'll set you up in a privacy room. Take your time." She led me through a heavy steel door into the vault, a narrow aisle of tidy rectangles, each with twin keyholes. A manager joined us to work the double lock, and together they slid out a long flat metal drawer. In the small room beyond, I sat across from it with my hands on either side, feeling the cold. I thought of Laverne in this same room 6 years ago, before the diagnosis, before the morphine whispers, before I learned that grief is a long hallway with 90 wrong doors. What had she tucked in here that she couldn't say out loud? The lid lifted with a sound like paper tearing. Inside were envelopes bound with rubber bands, smooth with handling, and underneath them, one letter sealed, my name written in Laverne's tidy print as a. I pressed it to my chest, because the first touch hurt, so sweet I had to hold myself together. Then I broke the seal and read, "My heart, if you are reading this, then I've gone on ahead, and you found what I tucked close to you all these years. Don't be mad I kept a secret. I did it to protect you." I swallowed and read faster, the room blurring at the edges. "I started saving 30 years ago. A little from every check you didn't see. This money is for you so you won't be bullied by our daughter's wants or Darius's schemes. Monique learned early to treat people like ATMs. You always gave and gave. I'm not judging you. I loved that kindness, but I need you to protect yourself when I'm not there to say enough." She recounted moments I remembered and pretended not to understand. The wedding demands, the guilt, the way Monique flashed tears like weapons. Below that were numbers, $29,000 in small deposits over decades, and, in this box, an additional $22,000 in cash. $51,000 I never knew we had. At the end, her hand grew smaller. "Live for yourself, Isaiah. The house, the money, the peace, it's yours. Don't let them take it with pretty words. Be slow, be smart, be firm. I love you more than any day can hold. Forever, Vern." I set the letter down and breathed slow until the air came back. The cash stayed put. I wasn't walking out with that much in my pocket, and I didn't yet know my next step. I folded her letter with reverence and slid it into my inside jacket pocket over my heart, where it warmed to my skin. Back in the lobby, Chantel asked if I needed anything else. "Just a minute," I said, and turned to the window where the city moved like a machine. In the reflection, I saw myself, an old black man in a charcoal coat, a gold chain glinting at his collarbone, eyes no longer watery with confusion but clear. Laverne had set me up to win a fight I hadn't admitted I was in. On the drive home, I didn't think, I decided. Decisions stack tidy when you finally stop lying to yourself. I parked, walked in, and went straight for the den. Darius blinked at the necklace. "You got that thing back?" "I did," I said, "and we're going to talk." He smirked. "About what, old man?" "About how things will be from now on," I said, voice steady as a level. "And how they won't." Monique appeared at the doorway, face tightening at the gleam at my throat. "Daddy, you can't just—" "I can," I said, feeling Laverne's letter like a spine in my chest. "And I will." I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I just stood there in my own den, the gold heart warm against my skin, and said, "We're changing the rules." Darius let a grin spread slow, the kind men wear when they think they can talk you down. "Zay, come on. My name is Isaiah to you," I said. "You're in my home, not a sports bar." Monique crossed her arms at the doorway. Kayla hovered behind her like a shadow with lip gloss. "Daddy, you're overreacting," Monique said. "We had to sell it. We're family." "Family asks before it takes," I said. "Starting now. You don't touch anything that's mine. You don't enter my bedroom. You don't open my mail. You don't speak to me like I'm a broken vending machine." Kayla snorted. "Okay, General." I turned, went upstairs, and shut my door. I sat at Laverne's old oak desk, the one we found at the Sweet Auburn Curb Market in '94, and pulled a yellow legal pad from the drawer. At the top, I wrote in block letters, March 4th, actions. Under it, one, document everything. That one felt like breathing. I moved through the house at dawn the next day while they slept late, the way they always do when somebody else's refrigerator is full. I took photographs. Darius's boots propped by my front door, not a construction site in sight. His heavy body print sinking my recliner. The coffee table pushed off-center to give his legs room. The empty six-pack ring peeking from under the couch. Kayla's explosion of makeup across the guest bath counter. Foundations, brushes, lashes like tiny tarantulas. Plus the water bill on the fridge with my name at the top. Paid by me. I added the images to a folder on my old Dell and labeled it House. Condition 03_04. Then I opened a fresh spreadsheet and started a ledger. Every borrow to Darius, every emergency for Monique. The exact day, the exact amount, the exact words they used when they said they'd pay me back and didn't. The number at the bottom rolled up like a storm. $17,950 unpaid since Laverne died. I made coffee, sat with Laverne's letter one more time, and then I started learning. Georgia is a one-party consent state for audio recording. Fulton County posts tenant law basics online. Verbal understandings mean nothing if one party puts terms in writing and serves them properly. I let the facts sink into my bones until my breath slowed. At 10 a.m., I called a law office in Castleberry Hill. The website showed a black woman my age in a navy suit with silver at her temples, a look that said no nonsense, plenty of wins. "Freeman and Holt, Elder Law and Estates," the receptionist answered. "My name's Isaiah Carter," I said. "I need help protecting myself from my own family." They gave me a same-week appointment. "Bring any documents you have," the receptionist said. "Ma'am," I said, looking at my folders, "I have documents." That afternoon, I took a lift to a strip center 3 miles off because I didn't want them seeing a box arrive. I picked up a Wi-Fi camera disguised like a smoke detector and a little bell camera for the hallway, paid cash, and carried them home in a grocery bag with collards and cornbread mix like any other old man's errand. When they left for Target, I climbed a step stool, swapped the dead smoke detector in the den for the new unit, and tested the wide-angle feed on my phone. The camera saw the couch, the kitchen entry, the hallway, and the den chair where Darius held court like a king of crumbs. I set the recording to trigger by motion and to upload to a cloud account Kayla would never think to look for because it didn't have my name on it. That evening, I made 2 plates of dinner, one for myself, one covered for the fridge. Monique breezed past, sniffed at the collards, and said, "You could have told me you were cooking." "You're welcome to cook," I said. "We're family," she said. I looked her in the eye. "Exactly." The camera caught what I expected it to catch within 48 hours. Darius in my chair talking to somebody on speaker. "Man, we just gotta hold out. Old folks fold." Kayla on the stairs to some friend. "If I guilt him hard enough, He'll pay my flight back to Miami. Monique at the kitchen table rifling my mail, opening 2 envelopes and sliding them into a drawer with a quick look around, like shame could make her invisible. On March 7th, I sat across from attorney Alicia Freeman in an office that smelled like good paper and lemon oil. She wore pearl studs and a navy suit and had the calm of a woman who delights in rules. I put my evidence down, neatly labeled photos, a ledger, copies of utility bills, the deed with only my name on it, and a printout of Laverne's letter I kept for legal reference, the original safe in my pocket over my heart. Miss Freeman read without blinking, asked precise questions, and then folded her hands. Mr. Carter, you've done excellent work. In Georgia, your daughter's household is a tenant at will. You can establish rental terms at any time. We'll serve a written agreement, reasonable rent, share of utilities, house rules, and an explicit line that violation means termination of tenancy. If they refuse or violate, we file a dispossessory action in Fulton County. Provided your documentation, a judge will not be sympathetic to their position. How long? I asked. Depends how they fight, but you have a surprise they don't know I'll use if we must. She tapped the screen where Darius slouched and said, "Old folks fold. Juries hate that." "I'm not after a jury," I said, rubbing my jaw. "I'm after my house back or respect inside its walls." She smiled small. "We'll start with respect." Her paralegal, young brother named Jameer with braids neat as a grid, drafted a rental agreement that afternoon. $1,450 a month due on the 1st, 50% of utilities. No unauthorized entry to the owner's bedroom or mail, no harassment, no guest longer than 3 nights without written approval, and a clause called peaceful enjoyment that made my heart feel seen. Miss Freeman kept the rate under market for West End on purpose. We don't want them saying you set them up to fail. We want them choosing to fail. I signed. Jameer arranged a process server for the next day. At 2:15 the following afternoon, a black woman in a gray blazer with a badge that read Taylor, Civil Process, rang my doorbell. Monique tried to shut the door on her. Taylor stepped sideways and slid the packet into her hands anyway. "You've been served," she said. "A courtesy rental agreement and notice. Sign acknowledgement here." Monique skimmed page 1 and went red. "This is a joke." "No, ma'am," Taylor said. "This is property law." Darius lumbered into the foyer, took the papers, and snorted. $14.50? For this old place. For the roof over your head. I said. Due on the 1st. "We're not paying you rent," Monique hissed. "We are your family." "You've said that like it's a credit card," I said. "It's not." Taylor made her notation, nodded to me, and left. The door's soft click felt like a gavel. The campaign began that night. Monique knocked on my bedroom door with damp eyes. "Daddy, you're going to give me a panic attack. I can't sleep. My heart is racing. Do you want me dead?" "Call your doctor," I said. "Or call Attorney Freeman." "Who?" "My lawyer," I said, and watched the word make her flinch. Darius tried muscle. He waited in the hallway outside my door 2 mornings later, leaning just enough to make passage feel like squeezing. "We need to revisit these numbers," he said. "Move," I said. He didn't. I took his picture, then took a step anyway. His chest grazed mine, a soft shove cloaked in accident. The hallway camera caught it all. The placement, the way his mouth curled when he thought nobody could see. I walked to the kitchen, made tea, and said not a word. Laverne used to tell me silence is a chisel. You can build with it. Kayla went online. By noon, my neighbor across the street, Mr. Jacobs, stopped me at the mailbox to ask if I was all right, like he expected me to wander into traffic. I smiled and kept walking. Let the internet be church for people who worship attention. The courthouse speaks a different gospel. On March 12th, I went downtown to the bank again. Chantel recognized me and led me through the vault with the same quiet respect. I deposited the cash from the box into a high-yield account in my name alone at a different institution across town, then put the remainder back with a ledger note. I opened a new checking account elsewhere, too. New passwords, new security questions, a fraud alert. When I told the manager why, he printed out a sheet and circled a line. Attempted access March 8th, denied. We'll flag your old accounts, Mr. Carter, he said. If anyone tries again, we'll notify you and legal. I carried that paper to Ms. Freeman's office on my way home. Jameer scanned it into a folder labeled Evidence, Exploitation. Then Ms. Freeman slid me a blank pad. Start writing down everything, she said. Date, time, exact words. We'll build a timeline that even a tired judge on a Friday can follow. I went home and did exactly that. Each entry neat, each one a brick. March 13th, 7:42 p.m. Monique opened my mail. 2 envelopes. Putting kitchen drawer under dish towels. Photograph attached. March 14th, 9:05 a.m. Darius blocked hallway, said old folks fold. Video clip attached. March 14th, 9:17 a.m. Kayla post implying I'm confused. Screenshot attached. That night, when the house was quiet, I opened Laverne's letter again. Be slow, be smart, be firm. I'm trying, Vern, I whispered. I'm being all 3. The next morning I printed 3 copies of the rental agreement, stuck one to the fridge with Laverne's magnet from our '02 trip to Tybee Island, slid one under Monique's door, and handed one to Darius with my eyes steady. First of the month, I said. He smirked. What if we don't? Then, I said, we're finished pretending. I went back to my room and closed the door, the gold heart warm against my sternum, my pen ready, the new rules written, the plan already walking on its own legs. I woke before sunrise the next day to the sound of Kayla's music thumping through the wall, some bass-heavy track about money and loyalty that felt like mockery. I sat on the edge of my bed, rubbing the ache in my knees, staring at the glint of gold where Laverne's necklace lay on my nightstand. The locket caught the first orange light creeping through the blinds, pulsing like a heartbeat. I'd made promises to that heartbeat once. Keep our daughter safe. Keep the house paid. Keep the peace. I kept the first 2. The third was about to break. Downstairs, the smell of bacon and resentment filled the kitchen. Darius was at the table scrolling his phone. Monique was on the phone with someone, her voice low, clipped. No, we'll be fine. Daddy's just confused. Yeah, I'm handling it. She glanced at me and turned away. Morning, I said. No answer. I poured myself coffee and set a folded piece of paper on the table beside Darius. He didn't look up. What's this? He mumbled, scrolling. Receipt. Proof of notice. You got 25 days to either sign that lease or find another place. That made him look. You can't be serious. Dead serious, I said. I already spoke with my lawyer. The court clerk knows my name. He laughed, loud and ugly. Man, you wouldn't last a week alone. Who's gonna take care of you when you fall? I sipped my coffee slow. I took care of myself before any of you were born. I'll manage again. He muttered something under his breath about crazy old fools. Monique ended her call and slammed her phone down hard enough to rattle the salt shaker. You really bringing lawyers into this family, Daddy? That's what Mama would want. Mama wanted peace in her house, I said. I'm finally giving her that. Kayla appeared then, phone in hand, hair wrapped in a silk scarf. Are y'all fighting again? Because I'm trying to record content, and this is not the vibe. Monique turned on her. Go to your room. Kayla rolled her eyes, but she went, still filming as she walked. I caught a glimpse of myself on her screen. Old man in a robe, tired eyes, the villain in her story. After breakfast, I went out to the porch. The March air was cool, carrying the smell of damp earth and the distant hum of traffic on I-20. I sat in Laverne's old rocking chair and thought about the bank box, the money she'd hidden to protect me. I hadn't touched it yet, but just knowing it existed steadied me. She'd seen this coming long before I did. Around noon, I drove to the neighborhood copy shop and printed new signs. Private property. No entry without owner's consent. I taped one to the front door, one by the back gate. On the way home, I stopped at a small electronics store on Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard and bought 2 more cameras. One disguised as a clock for the kitchen and a second for the front porch. The clerk, a kid with headphones around his neck, grinned. You catching somebody stealing packages, sir? Something like that, I said. Back home, Monique and Darius's car was gone. Kayla was upstairs blasting music again. Perfect. I installed the cameras, synced them to the same cloud account, and tested the feeds. Every corner of my house now had eyes. By evening, the footage began collecting like proof written in light. Darius lounging on my recliner, telling a friend over speakerphone that he planned to ride this situation till it flips. Monique pacing the kitchen with a glass of wine, muttering about lawyers who think they can bully family. Kayla filming a video in my living room, calling me toxic. I spent that night cataloging everything on my laptop, timestamps, transcripts, saved clips, each entry neat and deliberate. Every insult, every threat, every act of disrespect recorded. The same way I used to log test results back when I was a systems engineer at Locket, before retirement turned time into a slow crawl. By midnight, I'd built an archive strong enough to carry in front of a judge. I shut the laptop, turned off the lamp, and lay back, staring at the ceiling. Through the drywall, I could hear laughter from down the hall. The laughter of people sure they still owned me. 2 days later, the first real confrontation came. I was in the hallway heading toward the kitchen when Darius stepped out of the bathroom, blocking the narrow passage. His face was half shadow, half challenge. "You need to stop recording us, old man." I didn't flinch. "You shouldn't know that unless you've been somewhere you shouldn't be." He smirked. "Maybe I have. What are you gonna do about it?" "Move," I said. He leaned forward until his breath touched my cheek, heavy with beer. "You keep pushing this. You'll regret it." The shove came. Not hard enough to knock me down, but firm, calculated. My shoulder hit the wall. The clock camera in the kitchen caught everything. I straightened slow, heart pounding but face calm. "You just made your biggest mistake," I said. He laughed and walked away. That night, I forwarded the clip to Attorney Freeman with the subject line, "Physical contact, March 16 to 7:42 p.m. Her reply came 10 minutes later, "Understood. This qualifies as assault. Keep your distance. I'll accelerate the process." The next morning, Monique acted like nothing happened. She made pancakes, humming off key. Darius sat silent, avoiding my gaze. Kayla filmed her breakfast plate for social media, adding glittering captions. I ate toast in silence, the locket resting against my chest like a medal of patience. When the mail arrived, I found one envelope already opened, resealed with a sloppy strip of tape. It was from my bank. I took photos of the tampering and slid the envelope into my evidence folder. That afternoon, I visited the branch to report it. The manager confirmed an attempted login under Monique's email 2 days earlier. "We caught it before any damage," he said, printing the log for me. "Would you like to press charges?" "Not yet," I said, "but keep the record." Back home, the air felt different, tense, coiled. I could sense their awareness of the shifting ground beneath them. Monique avoided me entirely. Darius muttered curses under his breath. Kayla posted a long rant online about toxic elders who hoard wealth. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I documented. On March 20th, I met Miss Freeman again. She reviewed the video of Darius's shove, the bank logs, the opened mail, and the latest social posts. Her calm cracked just enough for satisfaction to show. "We can file for emergency eviction now," she said. "Elder abuse and financial exploitation. The court will prioritize it." "How long?" I asked. "Hearing within 2 weeks," she said. "And Mr. Carter?" "Yes." She smiled thinly. "You're winning." That night, I sat at my desk, the house quiet except for the faint rumble of traffic outside. I looked at Laverne's photo, her graduation picture from nursing school, bright smile, white uniform, proud eyes, and said, "I'm doing what you told me, Vern. Slow, smart, firm." I opened the locket and read her hidden note again, just to feel her handwriting under my thumb. The words had faded slightly from the oils on my skin, but the numbers, Atlanta Federal Credit Union, Box 1936, still gleamed like scripture. That secret had been my ignition, the spark that turned grief into clarity. From the living room came the faint sound of Monique whisper arguing with Darius. My hallway camera caught fragments. "We need to get him checked out. Make the court think he's losing it. He's sharper than he looks. Then we'll make him look less sharp." I sat back, recording still running, and let their plotting write its own testimony. Later, when they went to bed, I printed every transcript and placed them in my folder labeled Case A, Family Dispute. The stack of pages felt heavy as truth. I turned off the lamp, touched the necklace once more, and whispered, "You were right, baby. They don't know who they're dealing with." Through the thin walls came Kayla's muffled laughter, Monique's sigh, Darius's snore, the careless chorus of people who thought they'd already won. I smiled in the dark, steady and unshaken, because the clock was ticking in my favor, and every second that passed was another nail sealing the door on their comfort. The war had begun, and I wasn't the one who should be afraid. By the end of March, the air in the house had turned thick as syrup, every sound stretched and heavy. The television, the footsteps, even the refrigerator hum felt like it was measuring time between confrontations. I moved quieter now, slower, deliberate. When I spoke, it was calm and short. When they spoke, it was sharp, defensive, often whispered. The cameras caught more than I expected. That was the thing about truth. It doesn't whisper, it records. On March 28th, the hallway camera caught Darius blocking my way again. This time he didn't touch me. Just stood there, arms crossed, staring down like he was deciding something. When I turned sideways to pass, he muttered, "Old man, you better start watching your back." That video went straight into my evidence folder. Later that night, I heard Monique on the phone in her room, voice low but furious. "No, listen, he's got cameras. Real ones. He's filming us like we're criminals." Pause. "What? No, I can't cut the Wi-Fi. He changed the password. He's losing it. Losing it. Losing it." The words bounced around my skull long after she hung up. I almost laughed. They'd spent years feeding off me, and now that I was finally standing up, suddenly I was losing it. On the 30th, Miss Freeman called. Her tone carried quiet satisfaction. "The court approved our emergency hearing," she said. "April 15th. Judge Harmon, you'll need to be there with all documentation, physical and digital. Bring everything." "I'll be ready," I said. The morning of April 1st, I decided to leave the house early and drive. Sometimes you have to get distance to remember what peace sounds like. The sky was a pale blue bruise over Atlanta, spring pollen turning every car yellow. I rolled the windows down and let the air fill my lungs. For a few miles, I was just a man driving, not a target, not a defendant, not an old wallet somebody was trying to empty. When I got back, the front gate was wide open. That gate never stayed open unless somebody left it that way on purpose. Inside, the living room was empty, but the smell of cigarettes hung thick. My recliner had new scratches on the armrest. On the coffee table lay a small bottle of cognac, mine, half empty. Upstairs, Kayla's laughter came from behind a closed door, music blasting. I knocked once. "You open my liquor." The laughter stopped. Then, "You can afford it, Grandpa. Chill. Come downstairs," I said. "Busy." I stood there a long moment, then went back to my room. That was the moment something inside me changed shape. It wasn't rage, it was resolve cooling into metal. That evening, I drafted a letter on my computer titled, "Notice to Vacate," effective immediately. I followed George's statute line by line. Miss Freeman had already shown me the format. Date, reason, reference to failure to comply with written rental terms, 30 days to vacate. I printed 3 copies, signed them in blue ink, and placed each in an envelope. At sunrise, I slid one under their door, left another on the kitchen table, and kept the third in my folder. By mid-morning, Monique was at my door, pounding hard enough to rattle the frame. "You're insane," she shouted. "You can't throw your own family out." I opened the door just enough to meet her eyes. "Watch me. You can't survive alone. Who's gonna drive you to your appointments? Cook your meals?" I smiled. "I can drive. I can cook. I did both long before you decided to stay here rent-free." Her voice cracked. "Mama would hate you for this." "Your mother loved me enough to warn me," I said softly. "And she was right about you." That stopped her. For the first time in months, she didn't have words. She just stared at me, shaking, like I'd slapped her. Then she turned and stormed off. slamming the door so hard a picture frame fell from the hallway wall. The camera caught it all, the argument, her tone, her threat. That night, I sat at my desk reviewing the footage when an email from Ms. Freeman arrived. From A. Freeman to Isaiah Carter. Subject: Evidence submission. Mr. Carter, I filed preliminary exhibits with the court. Everything looks strong. Do not engage them further. If they escalate, call 911 and record. We'll handle the rest. A. Freeman. I replied with one word: understood. On April 3rd, I visited Atlanta Federal again to check the deposit box. Chantel greeted me with that same calm professionalism. Back again, Mr. Carter? Just verifying contents, I said. She led me back to the vault, opened the box, and stepped aside. The money was untouched, stacked neat as before, Laverne's handwriting labeling each envelope: gas fund. Emergency. Don't touch unless it's real. I smiled. It's real now, Vern, I whispered. Real enough. I took out $2,000, enough for legal fees and emergency expenses, signed the withdrawal form, and returned the rest. As I sealed the box, I felt her with me, steady, approving. When I got home, Monique was sitting in the living room with a man I didn't know. Mid-30s, cheap suit, slick hair. He rose when I entered. Mr. Carter, I'm Mr. Henson. I'm here on behalf of your daughter. She's concerned about your mental state. I laughed before I could stop myself. My mental state? She's noticed some paranoia, erratic decisions. She believes you may need a competency evaluation. Monique folded her hands like a saint. Daddy, we just want what's best for you. I looked from her to him. You're from Adult Protective Services? No, sir. Private consultant. Then you can get off my property. Sir, refusal to cooperate. Get out. He opened his mouth to protest, but the tone in my voice shut him down. I pointed to the door. You've got 10 seconds. He left. Monique followed, muttering something about court orders. I waited until the door clicked shut, then checked my front camera feed. Recorded every word. That footage was worth more than gold. That evening, I called Ms. Freeman. They're trying the incompetency angle, I said. Expected, she replied. I'll have you evaluated by an independent geriatric specialist tomorrow. It'll kill that argument fast. The next day, I sat in Dr. Patel's office, bright, modern, filled with soft jazz. She was efficient but kind, testing memory, reflexes, logic. When we finished, she smiled. Mr. Carter, you're sharper than most 40-year-olds I see. Don't worry. My report will reflect that. Thank you, doctor. By the time I returned home, Monique had printed out fake forms, guardianship petitions with blank signatures. They were on the dining table, probably hoping I'd sign something without reading it. I photographed them and sent them to Miss Freeman, who replied within minutes. Good. That's attempted fraud. More evidence. That night, Darius tried one last intimidation tactic. He came to my door around midnight, drunk, whispering through the crack. You know this house ain't yours forever, old man. Sooner or later, it'll be ours. I didn't answer. I just lifted my phone, tapped record, and filmed his shadow through the crack until he stumbled away. The next morning, April 5th, I woke with a strange sense of calm. The storm was here, but I was the one holding the umbrella. I dressed in my best shirt, white pressed, the one Laverne always said made me look like a man who knows the answer before the question. I poured coffee, stood by the window, and looked out at the yard we'd built together. Her azalea bushes blooming pink, the oak tree she made me plant when Kayla was born, the sunlight spreading across the grass like forgiveness. I said aloud, "It's almost over, Vern. I'm getting our peace back." Behind me, the clock camera blinked its steady red light, quietly collecting another day of truth. By April 6th, the countdown had begun. 9 days until the hearing. Monique didn't speak to me. Darius avoided eye contact. Kayla stopped filming and started packing. And I, Isaiah Carter, sat each night at my desk under the soft hum of the lamp, writing one sentence across every page of my notebook. Document everything. Stay calm. The truth will hold. And it would. Because truth, like steel, only gets stronger when you test it with fire. By the time April 10th arrived, The house felt like an occupied territory, my name on the deed, but their energy pressing against every wall. You could feel the tension in the air, like static before lightning. Every sound had a double meaning. The slam of a cabinet door, the whisper of footsteps in the hallway, the low hum of whispered plotting behind closed doors. I woke at 5 that morning and sat on the edge of my bed. The locket lay in my palm, its gold warm from my skin. I whispered, "You told me to be slow, smart, and firm, Vern. I'm on step 3 now." Outside, the first birds were calling from the oak tree she planted when Kayla was born. I brewed coffee, poured it into my Chip Tuskegee University mug, and opened my notebook. Across the first line, I wrote, April 10th, final week before hearing. Maintain composure. I spent the next 2 hours reviewing everything. Video clips, bank statements, the recorded threats, the fake guardianship papers, the attempted access to my accounts, the footage of Darius pushing me. I printed duplicates and placed them in 3 separate folders. One for Ms. Freeman, one for the court, one for myself. Every page numbered, dated, sealed in plastic sleeves. 40 years as an engineer had trained me to believe in systems, and now that discipline was saving me. By 7, Monique was up, clattering around the kitchen. I could hear her voice through the thin wall between us, tight and shaking. "We'll lose everything if we don't do something," she said into her phone. "Yes, I tried talking to him. He won't listen. He's got a lawyer now." Then silence. A long exhale. The clink of her mug on the counter. I stood in the doorway, watching her. She didn't notice me at first. The sunlight hit her face, and for a second, I saw the girl she used to be. The one who'd fall asleep on Laverne's lap during late-night movies. But that girl was gone, replaced by a woman driven by fear disguised as entitlement. "Morning," I said. She jumped slightly, then forced a smile. "Morning, Daddy. Coffee. I already made mine." She hesitated, then sat down across from me. "I know things have been tense," she said carefully. "But can we just reset? Forget all this lawyer stuff." I sipped my coffee. "You mean, forget the assault, the mail tampering, the fraud, and the theft?" Her eyes flashed. "You make it sound so ugly." "It is ugly, Monique." She looked down, twisting her ring. "We're family. We shouldn't be fighting like enemies." "Family doesn't steal from family," I said softly. She opened her mouth to respond, but stopped when the front door opened. Darius stepped in, carrying a brown paper bag. The smell of beer hit the air before he even set it down. "Morning," he said, voice heavy. "Morning," I replied. He glanced at the table between us, at the folders stacked neatly in front of me. "That for court?" "Yes." He smirked. "Man, you really think a judge is gonna throw out his own daughter? You trippin'." "I think," I said, "a judge will see the truth." He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "You better hope she does. 'Cause when this backfires, you'll regret it." Monique tried to touch his arm. "Darius, please." He shrugged her off and went upstairs. The sound of his footsteps vibrated through the floorboards. I turned to Monique. "You still have time to walk away from this before it gets worse." Her jaw tightened. "You're not the man I remember." I smiled faintly. "I am exactly the man your mother married, just finally awake." That afternoon, I met with Miss Freeman at her downtown office. She looked up from her laptop when I entered, glasses perched low on her nose. "Isaiah," she said, "you ready?" "I've been ready for years," I said. She smiled. "Then let's review our plan." We went through the binder page by page. Every photo, every timestamp, every document. When we finished, she nodded. "Judge Harmon doesn't tolerate nonsense. The assault video alone will secure the order. The financial exploitation and mail tampering will seal it. You've done everything right. What happens if they claim I'm incompetent?" I asked. She slid a paper across the desk. "Dr. Patel's medical report. That's already handled. You're fit, healthy, and lucid. They'll have nothing to stand on." I exhaled, a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "Now," she said, "I want you to go home and stay calm. Don't engage them. Don't rise to bait. The hearing's in 5 days. Let the evidence speak for you." Always did believe in evidence, I said. Never trusted talk. That night, I cooked dinner for myself, catfish and cornbread, Laverne's old recipe. The smell filled the kitchen, carried memories with it. Monique and Darius stayed in their room. Kayla came downstairs briefly, phone in hand, took one look at the food, and said, "You're actually cooking? Guess you're proving you can survive alone." "Yes, I am," I said. She laughed, but it was hollow. Then she went back upstairs, already talking into her phone. When the house quieted, I sat at the kitchen table, eating slowly. For the first time in years, the food tasted like something real. At midnight, my phone buzzed with an email alert, motion detected in the living room. I opened the camera feed. Darius stood there, shirtless, rummaging through the drawers of my desk. He pulled out an envelope, opened it, cursed, and stuffed it into his pocket. I smiled grimly. The envelope contained nothing but blank paper. I'd left it there as bait. The next morning, I printed screenshots of the footage, labeled them. April 11th, 12:17 a.m. Theft attempt. I sent the files to Ms. Freeman. Subject line: "They keep writing my case for me." She replied 2 words: "Perfect evidence." That afternoon, Monique tried a different approach. She came to my door holding a photo of Laverne. "Remember her?" she said softly. "I do. Every day. She wouldn't want this. She'd want peace." "She wanted peace, yes," I said, "but she didn't want me to buy it with silence." Her voice cracked. "I don't know what happened to you." "Nothing happened to me," I said. "I just stopped pretending your greed was love." She froze, the photo trembling in her hand. Then she whispered, "I'll make you regret this," and walked away. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the window watching headlights sweep across the yard, listening to the hum of the city. My mind went back to Laverne's last days, the way she'd squeeze my hand even when she couldn't speak. She tried to warn me back then, but grief made me deaf. Now I heard her clearly. Around 3 a.m., thunder rolled across the sky, shaking the window panes. Rain began to fall, steady and cleansing. I whispered into the dark, "Wash it all away, Vern. Just a few more days." By dawn, the house smelled of wet earth. I brewed coffee, put on my cleanest shirt, and sat at the table with my binder open one last time. I read through every page, every note, every timestamp. By the time I reached the end, the fear that had shadowed me for months was gone. All that was left was clarity. April 15th was coming fast. 5 days. Then everything would change. That evening, I received a message from Miss Freeman. "Judge Harmon has reviewed preliminary materials. She's impressed. Prepare for testimony." I looked around my quiet room, at the photos of Laverne and me on the wall, at the locket shining softly on the nightstand. I said aloud, "You see that, Vern? We're almost free." Outside, the storm clouds began to clear, the sky opening into calm. Inside, for the first time in years, so did I. The morning of April 15th arrived gray and heavy, the kind of sky that presses low, as if the heavens themselves are watching to see which way justice will fall. I was awake long before sunrise. My suit was already laid out, dark gray, freshly pressed, the same one I wore at Laverne's funeral. The locket hung around my neck, warm against my chest like a heartbeat. Downstairs, the house was quiet, too quiet. Monique's door was closed, Darius's snore silent for once, Kayla's room dark. I made coffee, black and strong, and sat at the kitchen table with my binder open. Every page was in order: evidence, photos, videos, transcriptions, and a printed copy of Dr. Patel's report verifying my mental competence. I ran a hand over the papers, steadying myself. At 7 sharp, Miss Freeman's car pulled into the driveway. A silver sedan with the confidence of a woman who never loses in court. She stepped out, her navy suit crisp, her silver hair pulled back. "Morning, Isaiah," she said. "Morning," I replied. "Feels like a big day." "It is," she said with a small smile. "But you've already won half the battle by being prepared. Now let the truth do the rest." She drove us downtown through the slow Atlanta traffic. The city looked washed clean from last night's rain. Peachtree Street gleamed like new steel under the overcast sky. When we arrived at the Fulton County Courthouse, I could feel my pulse steady itself, the calm that comes right before a storm. Inside, the courtroom was small but dignified, wooden benches, a tall bench for the judge, the seal of Georgia gleaming behind her. Judge Harmon was already seated, reviewing papers. She was a compact woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and the stillness of someone who missed nothing. Monique and Darius were already there, sitting side by side at the defense table. Darius wore a borrowed suit 2 sizes too big. Monique's blouse was crisp, but her eyes were tired. Kayla sat behind them, arms crossed, her phone tucked in her lap like a weapon. When I entered, Monique's expression flickered. Anger, then guilt, then something else I couldn't name. Miss Freeman guided me to our table, set her files down, and whispered, "Breathe slow. Speak truth. Don't let them bait you." The bailiff called the case. Carter versus Carter et al. Case hashtag 2025 EV 0415. Petition for eviction and elder exploitation. Judge Harmon looked up. "Mr. Carter, Miss Freeman ready?" "Yes, Your Honor," Miss Freeman said. "Ms. Carter." Monique cleared her throat. "We're representing ourselves." That earned a faint lift of the judge's eyebrow. "Very well. Let's proceed." Miss Freeman opened with quiet precision. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Isaiah Carter, 70 years old, is the sole owner of his property at 512 West End Avenue. His daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughter have resided there without payment since 2022. Over the last 6 months, they've engaged in harassment, financial exploitation, and physical intimidation. We are petitioning for immediate removal and restitution of damages." The judge nodded. "Proceed with evidence." Ms. Freeman began with the videos. Darius pushing me in the hallway, Monique opening my mail, Kayla mocking me online, Darius threatening me with old folks fold. The sound echoed through the courtroom, ugly and raw. When it played, Darius shifted, jaw tight. Monique wouldn't look up. Kayla's eyes flicked to her phone screen, recording even now. Then came the bank statements, the attempted unauthorized access, the fraudulent guardianship papers Monique printed, and Dr. Patel's report confirming I was mentally sound. Finally, Ms. Freeman submitted Laverne's letter, not the full personal part, but the portion establishing that the money in the safety deposit box had been hers, saved privately, and that she designated it for my security. It showed motive and premeditation on their part to access it. When Ms. Freeman rested, Judge Harmon turned to Monique. "Your response." Monique stood, shaky but defiant. "Your Honor, my father isn't well. He's confused. My husband and I have only tried to help him manage things. Those videos are taken out of context." The judge's eyebrow lifted again. "Out of context?" "Yes," Monique said quickly. "That argument in the hallway. My husband was just trying to steady him. He nearly fell. And the mail. I open it because he forgets sometimes. And the bank access." Monique hesitated. "We were just checking balances to help with bills." "And the printed guardianship forms?" Her voice wavered. "He must have found those online. I don't know what he's talking about." Darius finally spoke. "Look, Judge, we all family. You know how it is. The old man's been on edge since his wife passed. We just try and keep him safe." Ms. Freeman rose smoothly. "Your Honor, if I may?" "Proceed." She clicked a key on her laptop. The video from the hallway played again, Darius blocking my path, whispering, "Old man, you better start watching your back." The room went silent. "That doesn't look like keeping anyone safe," Ms. Freeman said softly. "That looks like intimidation." Darius sank back in his chair, muttering under his breath. Judge Harmon folded her hands. "Enough. I've seen enough." She turned to me. "Mr. Carter, do you wish to make a statement?" I stood, my knees creaking, and faced the bench. "Your Honor, I'm not here out of hate. I'm here because my wife trusted me to protect what we built together. I let grief blind me. I let my kindness get used up by people who stopped seeing me as a man and started seeing me as an ATM. But I'm awake now. All I want is peace in my own home." The judge nodded slowly, studying me. "You've carried yourself with dignity today, Mr. Carter. I respect that." She turned to Monique and Darius. This court finds sufficient evidence of exploitation and harassment. Effective immediately, the respondents are ordered to vacate the premises within 72 hours. Mr. Carter will retain full possession of his property. Furthermore, I'm referring this case to the county's Elder Justice Task Force for review of potential criminal charges regarding financial fraud. Monique gasped. Criminal charges? Yes, Miss Carter, the judge said. You should have thought of that before you opened your father's mail. Darius shot to his feet. This is bull. Sit down, the judge snapped. One more word, and I'll hold you in contempt. The gavel came down. Court adjourned. Silence filled the room like thunder after a strike. Miss Freeman packed her folders, calm and precise. You did well, she whispered. I turned to look at my daughter. She was crying quietly now, hands shaking. Darius looked lost, his bravado gone. Kayla stood behind him, phone lowered for once, staring at me with something almost like shame. As I walked out of the courtroom, the locket against my chest felt lighter, almost humming. Outside, the air smelled like rain again. Miss Freeman squeezed my shoulder. Go home, she said. You've earned your peace. When I got back to West End, the house was silent. Monique's car was gone. Darius's boots by the door were missing. In the living room, a single photo frame had fallen from the wall. Laverne's picture from 1985, her smile as bright as summer. I picked it up, dusted off the glass, and set it on the mantel. Then I sat in my recliner, the one they'd claimed as theirs for months, and closed my eyes. For the first time in 3 years, the house felt like it was breathing with me, not against me. I whispered, We did it, Vern. The gold locket warmed again, as if answering back. But peace, I would soon learn, is never the end of the story. It's just the breath you take before the next truth demands to be spoken. For 72 hours after that gavel fell, the house was quieter than it had been in years, but not peaceful yet. Quiet can be dangerous when it's soaked in resentment. I knew enough about human nature to recognize it. The silence before departure always carries the sharp scent of revenge. The court order had given them exactly 3 days to vacate. Miss Freeman's office delivered official papers that same afternoon, signed and stamped by Judge Harmon herself. The sheriff's department left a duplicate copy on my porch, sealed in plastic against the rain. Notice to vacate by April 18th, court-ordered eviction. When I pinned that paper to the kitchen corkboard, something inside me loosened, a tightness I hadn't realized had lived in my chest for years. But Monique, she went quiet, too quiet. On the evening of April 16th, I heard the back door open and close softly around 10 p.m. My first thought was the wind, until I checked the camera feed. There she was, walking out into the yard in her robe, a cigarette glowing like an ember in the dark. She stood under the oak tree for almost 20 minutes, staring up at the house. When she turned back toward the camera, her face was streaked with tears. I watched that footage twice. Then I turned the monitor off. The next morning, she didn't come downstairs. Darius and Kayla packed boxes without speaking. They worked slowly, carelessly, throwing things into bags like it was someone else's mess. I watched from the kitchen table, coffee mug in hand. They didn't look at me. At noon, Monique appeared, eyes red-rimmed, holding a small stack of envelopes. She placed them on the table between us. Mail, she said simply. I looked at the envelopes. Bills mostly. One from my insurance, one from the electric company, one from the bank. I nodded. Thank you. Her voice cracked. You really gonna let them throw us out like dogs, Daddy? Judge Harmon didn't throw you out, I said quietly. You threw yourselves out. You think I wanted this? She snapped. You think I meant for it to get this bad? We just needed help. You had money, and we didn't. You always had more than me. That money wasn't mine, I said. It was your mother's. She saved it because she knew this day would come. She stared at me, confused. What are you talking about? I leaned back, studying her face. The same cheekbones as Laverne, the same brown eyes, but none of her light. You remember that locket you sold? She swallowed. Of course I remember. There was a note inside. From your mother. Her jaw clenched. What note? The one she hid there because she knew you couldn't be trusted. That broke her composure. She slammed her hands on the table, tears spilling down her face. You're lying. You're turning her against me, and she's not even here to defend herself. She doesn't need to, I said. She already did. Darius stepped in then, his voice low and dangerous. Old man, maybe you should quit while you're ahead. I stood slowly, meeting his stare. 3 days, Darius. That's what the court gave you. If you're not gone by then, the sheriff will come. And when he does, you'll be the one on the street. He smirked. We'll see. He turned, motioning for Monique to follow. She did, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. The rest of the day passed like a ghost. I spent it cleaning out the storage closet, folding old towels, tossing expired food from the pantry. Every small task felt like reclaiming space that had been stolen. That night, I sat in the living room and opened my laptop. An email from Ms. Freeman was waiting, from A. Freeman to Isaiah Carter. Subject: Congratulations and next steps, Mr. Carter. I've confirmed with the sheriff's office that the eviction will be enforced at 9 a.m. on April 18th if they refuse to leave. After that, we can discuss restoring the property, changing locks, and possible sale or downsizing options if you'd like to relocate. You've handled this with remarkable patience and dignity. Don't lose that now. A. Freeman. I typed a brief reply. Thank you. I'll be ready. But ready didn't feel like the right word. How do you prepare yourself to watch your own child be escorted from your home? April 17th, the final full day. Rain again, Atlanta's version of confession. The sky hung low and heavy, water running down the windows like tears. I spent the morning polishing the necklace's glass case, the one I'd built to hold it after court. The gold shimmered against the dark velvet lining. Beside it sat Laverne's letter, folded neatly, the paper soft from being read too many times. At noon, there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Kayla standing there, hood up, mascara smudged. "Grandpa," she said quietly. "Can I come in?" I nodded, stepped aside. She sat on the couch, hands in her lap. I just wanted to say, I didn't mean for all this to happen. Mom was just desperate, you know. Desperation doesn't excuse cruelty, I said. I know, she whispered. I guess I thought we were helping. At first. I looked at her, really looked, past the bravado, past the social media gloss. She was just a young woman raised on entitlement and broken promises. Not evil, just lost. You're still young, I said softly. You've got time to choose who you want to be. Don't choose their road. It only leads to regret. She nodded slowly. I think I already know that. When she left, I watched from the window as she climbed into Darius's car. They didn't look at each other. The next morning, April 18th, I woke before dawn. The sky was pale gray, the air cool and sharp. I brewed coffee and waited. At 8:45, the sheriff's cruiser rolled up the driveway. 2 deputies stepped out, polite but firm. Mr. Carter? Yes. Court order for eviction, sir. We'll keep things civil. I nodded. I appreciate that. By 9 o'clock, Monique and Darius were standing in the living room, surrounded by boxes. The deputies gave them 15 minutes to collect what they could carry. Darius muttered curses under his breath, but he didn't resist. Monique kept her eyes on the floor, silent tears streaking her cheeks. Kayla hugged me once, quickly, before following them out. Goodbye, Grandpa, she whispered. Take care of yourself, I said. When the door closed behind them, the house exhaled. The deputies handed me a paper confirming possession had been restored. I signed it, thanked them, and stood alone in my doorway, watching the car pull away until it disappeared down the street. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. That evening, I called Ms. Freeman. They're gone, I said simply. Her voice brightened. Then, Mr. Carter, it's time to think about what comes next. I looked around at the house, at the walls that had held both laughter and betrayal, at the floors scarred by Darius's boots. I think, I said, it's time for a new chapter. Good, she replied. Then we'll start writing it. After I hung up, I walked through each room slowly, turning off lights one by one. When I reached my bedroom, I stood before Laverne's photo, the locket glowing faintly in the case beside it. "We're free now, Vern," I whispered. "You were right all along." The air in the room shifted gently, as if the house itself agreed. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Freedom is never the end. It's just the clearing before you decide what kind of life you want to build next. And for the first time in a long time, that decision was finally mine. 2 days after Monique and her family left, the house felt like a different planet. The air was still, light poured through the windows unfiltered, and every sound I made, every footstep, every turn of a doorknob, echoed back to me like a reminder that this space was mine again. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. No shouting from the hallway, no music vibrating through the walls, no heavy footsteps pacing past my door. When I woke, the sun was already high, painting soft gold across the walls. I made coffee and stood at the kitchen counter, just listening to the quiet. That quiet was sacred. I thought it might feel lonely, but it didn't. It felt clean, like standing in the air after a thunderstorm. The house, however, bore scars, literal ones. Darius had punched a hole in the bedroom wall. The wood floors were scratched from their furniture, and the bathroom sink was cracked clean through. I spent that entire morning walking room to room with my phone, documenting everything. The photos went into a new folder on my laptop titled Restoration. When I opened the living room curtains, sunlight hit the framed photo of Laverne and me on our wedding day. Her smile had that same calm mischief she always carried, like she already knew how this story would end. I touched the glass gently and whispered, "You'd laugh if you could see how quiet this place is now." That afternoon, Miss Freeman called. "I'm just checking in, Mr. Carter," she said. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I have in years," I told her. "The silence is healing." "I'm glad. You deserve that. Have you thought any more about selling the house?" I hesitated, looking around at the sunlight streaming through the kitchen. "I have. It feels like too much space for one man." "Understandable," she said. "If you're ready, I can recommend a realtor who specializes in discreet, fast turnaround sales. Someone who won't pry. Let's do it." "Good. I'll have him call you tomorrow." After I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table, the phone still in my hand, thinking. Selling the house wasn't just a financial move. It was a spiritual one. Laverne and I had built this home from the ground up in 1985, every board and nail soaked with memory. But memories, I was learning, could turn heavy if you never let them rest. That night, I poured myself a small glass of bourbon and walked the perimeter of the yard. The azalea bushes Laverne planted were beginning to bloom, pink and stubborn despite neglect. I touched one of the petals, soft as breath. "You outlasted them too, didn't you?" Inside, I sat at my desk and began writing notes, reflections, details I never wanted to forget. It wasn't for a lawyer this time. It was for me. The title at the top of the first page read, "What Peace Sounds Like." The next morning, the realtor arrived. His name was Robert Langston, a tall, thin man with easy confidence and a kind face. He drove a white SUV and carried a leather folder. "Mr. Carter," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Angela Freeman speaks highly of you. She said you're looking for a new start." "That's one way to put it," I said. He smiled. "Let's take a walk through the property. See what we're working with." For the next hour, we moved from room to room. Robert took notes, snapping photos with a small camera. He didn't judge the damage. He simply cataloged it. When we reached the living room, he paused at the photo of Laverne on the mantel. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "She was," I replied. "Still is in a way." He nodded with understanding that didn't need words. "I'll run the numbers," he said finally. "Houses in this area are moving fast. You're sitting on value." That night, I couldn't help but think of how strange it felt. 40 years spent filling a space, and now all I wanted was to let it go. But Laverne had taught me that letting go wasn't the same as losing. Sometimes it was how you honored what you'd loved most. 2 days later, Robert called back. "We can list it at $375,000, he said. "It's solid construction, good neighborhood, just needs cosmetic updates. You'll get offers within a week." "Let's list it," I said. The for sale sign went up that Friday. Red and white, bold letters, planted in the front yard like a flag marking new territory. The neighbors, curious as cats, slowed down when they passed. Mrs. Henderson from across the street called out, "You moving, Isaiah?" I smiled, thinking about downsizing. Time for something simpler. She nodded approvingly. "Good for you. You've earned a little peace." That weekend, I received 2 calls, both from potential buyers who'd seen the online listing. The house was shown twice on Sunday. Each time, I stepped outside and waited under the oak tree while strangers walked through the rooms that had held my whole life. I thought it would feel invasive, but instead it felt right. The house deserved new laughter. That night, as I reviewed emails from Robert about the offers, I noticed a voicemail. Unknown number. I pressed play. "Daddy, it's me." Monique's voice. Shaky, hesitant. "I know you don't want to hear from me, but we're struggling. We've been staying in a motel. Darius can't find work. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for getting caught. For everything." The message ended with silence, then a small, broken sound, like a breath she couldn't finish. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone. Guilt tried to crawl its way back in, but Laverne's letter echoed in my head. "Don't let them turn your love into a leash." The next morning, I deleted the voicemail. Not out of anger, out of mercy. For both of us. That week, Robert brought me an offer from a young couple, Marcus and Lena Thompson, newlyweds from Decatur. They loved the house instantly. Marcus said, "It feels like it's got a soul." "It does," I said. "Just make sure you treat it gently." By the following Friday, we were under contract. Closing was scheduled for the end of May. With the sale set, I started planning the next step, where to go. A house that big didn't make sense for one man anymore. Ms. Freeman recommended a quiet community in Scottsdale, a place where retirees lived independently but safely. When I looked it up online, the photos were beautiful. Mountain views, walking trails, a workshop for residents. That last part caught my eye. That evening, I sat at the kitchen table again with my notebook open. Under the title, "What Peace Sounds Like," I wrote a single sentence. "It sounds like the hum of a saw in a small workshop, and the laughter of people who aren't trying to take anything from you." For the first time since Laverne's death, I smiled without feeling like I was betraying her. The days that followed passed in quiet rhythm. I boxed up photos, labeled each one carefully, packed Laverne's books, her recipes, her quilt, the small things that made life feel like ours. The necklace stayed out, resting in its glass case on the mantel. On the last night before the house went to inspection, I sat in the living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. The air smelled of dust and furniture polish. I whispered, "We did, Vern. You can rest now." A breeze slipped through the cracked window, brushing against my cheek like a hand I knew too well. That night, I slept with the necklace on my chest, just once more. When morning came, I was ready, not to start over, but to begin again. And this time, it would be on my terms. The morning of May 29th came with a light drizzle, the kind that smells like wet magnolia and asphalt. I woke early, before the movers arrived, and sat on the edge of the bed, the locket warm against my chest. Around me, the room was nearly empty. Boxes labeled bedroom, fragile lined the walls, and the faint echo in the space made every small sound feel like the start of something new. I looked around at the bare walls and thought about the first morning Laverne and I had spent here 40 years ago. Back then, the walls were blank too, the floors freshly polished, the air filled with our laughter and the sound of her humming. "Ain't No Sunshine," while unpacking dishes. It felt right that the house would end the same way it began, quiet, open, waiting for its next story. By 7, the movers arrived. 3 men in matching blue shirts with the words West End Hauling and Storage across the back. Their truck rumbled into the driveway like an old friend. "Morning, Mr. Carter." One of them called. "You all ready to roll?" "Been ready," I said, handing him a clipboard with the inventory list. They worked fast and carefully, wrapping furniture in padded blankets, taping boxes tight. I stayed out of the way, just watching. Every scrape of a box across the floor sounded like closure. At one point, the youngest mover couldn't have been more than 25. paused at the mantel where the glass case sat. Inside, the locket caught the morning light. "This yours?" he asked. "It was my wife's," I said. "She wore it every day for 41 years. He nodded respectfully. "Beautiful piece. You want me to pack it?" "No," I said. "That one rides with me." He smiled. "Understood." By noon, the house was empty. I walked through each room one last time, touching the walls like old friends. Laverne's laughter in the kitchen, the echo of Kayla's first steps in the hallway, the faint ghost of late-night arguments that once shook the walls. All of it still lived here, but none of it owned me anymore. When I reached the front door, I paused and looked back. "Thank you," I whispered. Then I locked it and slipped the key into an envelope labeled for the Thompsons. Outside, the drizzle had turned to full rain. I stood under the porch for a moment, letting the sound of it fill the silence. Then I got into my car, a dark green Buick that still smelled faintly of Laverne's perfume, and pulled away from the curb. The drive to Scottsdale took 6 hours. The interstate rolled out like a long gray ribbon, lined with pine trees and billboards fading from years of sun. I kept the radio off. I wanted to hear the sound of my own thoughts, the steady hum of tires, the heartbeat of freedom. About halfway there, I stopped at a roadside diner. The sign read Maggie's Place, home cooking since 1972. Inside, it smelled like bacon grease and coffee, and the waitress greeted me with a smile that felt older than time. "What can I get you, sweetheart?" she asked. "Eggs over easy, grits and toast," I said. "And coffee. Strong." She grinned. "You got it." As I ate, I found myself watching the other patrons. A pair of truckers trading jokes, a mother feeding her toddler, 2 old men arguing over baseball. Simple, ordinary moments, the kind Laverne loved. Before I left, I asked the waitress for a to-go cup. She filled it, then pointed to the locket peeking out from under my shirt. "That's lovely," she said. "Special someone?" "Yes," I said softly. "Always." She smiled. "That kind of love don't end, sugar. It just changes address." Her words stayed with me the rest of the drive. By late afternoon, I reached Scottsdale. The retirement community sat on the edge of the foothills, surrounded by desert wildflowers and low sandstone ridges that caught the setting sun. The sign at the entrance read, "Juniper Hollow, independent living for independent spirits." A security guard waved me through with a friendly nod. The place was peaceful, rows of tidy single-story homes, each with a small porch and garden patch. People were walking dogs, chatting over fences, tending flowers. No noise, no chaos, just calm. My unit, number 14B, sat at the end of a curved lane lined with crepe myrtles. The property manager, a woman named Clara with silver curls and an efficient smile, met me at the door. "Mr. Carter, welcome to Juniper Hollow," she said. "We've been expecting you." She handed me a folder with the lease, emergency numbers, and a map of the community. "We've got a woodworking club that meets Tuesdays and Thursdays," she added. "You strike me as a hands-on type." I chuckled. "Used to be. Might be again." She showed me around. Living room, small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, one turned into a study. Clean, modern, simple. Exactly what I needed. When she left, I sat on the small porch and watched the sunset bleed orange and violet across the horizon. The desert air was dry and smelled faintly of sage. In the distance, someone was playing a harmonica, slow, wandering notes that drifted like memory. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the locket. For the first time, I opened it not to mourn, but to say thank you. "Made it, Vern," I whispered. "Took a while, but I made it." That night, I slept without dreams. The next morning, I woke early and walked down to the community center. The woodworking club was already setting up. 3 men and 1 woman, all around my age. The room smelled of cedar and sawdust. "You knew," one of them asked, a broad man with a friendly drawl. "First day," I said. "Isaiah Carter." "Welcome, Isaiah. I'm Walt. Pick a bench. There's coffee by the door." I smiled, rolled up my sleeves, and joined them. The feel of the wood under my hands, the sound of saws and sandpaper. It was therapy. We built birdhouses that morning, laughing about nothing and everything. For the first time in years, I felt human again. At lunch, Walt asked, "You got family nearby?" "Not anymore," I said. "But I had someone once. She's gone now." He nodded, not pressing. "Well, you got family here now. We don't bite." That evening, I walked the perimeter of the community trail. The air had cooled, the desert sky wide and endless above me. I stopped at a small overlook where the town lights shimmered below. I thought about Monique, wherever she was now. I hoped she'd found some kind of peace, or at least the mirror she'd been avoiding. I didn't hate her anymore. Hate was heavy. I'd carried enough of it for one lifetime. When I returned home, I set the locket on my nightstand and opened my notebook. Under the title, "What Peace Sounds Like," I wrote another line. "It sounds like sawdust falling on sunlight, and laughter that doesn't hide knives." Then I closed the book, turned off the lamp, and let the quiet settle around me like a warm blanket. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was living. And that, I realized, was the true inheritance Laverne had left me. Not money, not a secret, but the courage to start again. June came to Scottsdale like a soft exhale. The desert mornings were cool, the afternoons bright and wide. My new home at Juniper Hollow had settled around me like a well-worn coat, comfortable, familiar, and light. I found myself falling into rhythms I didn't know I'd missed. Early coffee on the porch, morning walks past rows of sunflowers, evenings spent sanding wood until my hands smelled of cedar and patience. Every Thursday, the woodworking club met in the community shed, and the air filled with laughter and the low hum of saws. Walt would tell long, rambling stories about his Navy days. Clara, the property manager, sometimes dropped by with fresh lemonade. I'd begun making small furniture pieces, simple things, stools, boxes, frames. One afternoon, I built a wooden case for the locket, not to hide it, but to honor it. The case sat on my nightstand, lined with dark felt and engraved on the inside, "Forever Vern." But peace, as I'd learned, isn't the absence of noise. It's the decision not to let the noise control you. On June 12th, a letter arrived. The envelope bore no return address, just my name written in familiar handwriting. Monique's. I sat on the porch, the paper trembling slightly between my fingers as I opened it. "Daddy, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to try. We've been staying with Darius's cousin in Macon. It's not easy. He's drinking more, and I think he blames me for everything. Maybe he's right. I don't blame you for what happened. I blame myself for thinking love meant control. You didn't deserve that. Kayla's talking about getting a job in Savannah. I think she's ashamed of us. She should be. I know I said terrible things to you, things I can't take back. But I want you to know I remember Mom. The way she used to hum when she cooked, the way she looked at you. She'd be proud of how you've stood up for yourself. I'm sorry, Daddy. I really am." Monique, I read it twice, maybe 3 times. Each word felt heavier than the last, but not in a bad way. More like weight that had finally found its rightful place. When I finished, I folded the letter neatly and placed it inside the wooden box with the locket. Then I sat there for a long time, watching the sunlight fade across the desert hills. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't something you gave once. It was something you practiced every day, like breathing. That night, I dreamt of Laverne, not as the sick woman in the hospital bed, but as she was in her prime, standing in our old kitchen, flour on her hands, humming softly. In the dream, she turned to me and said, "You can let it go now, Zay. You did what I couldn't." When I woke, my face was wet, but the tears didn't sting. They felt like release. The following week, I joined a volunteer group at Juniper Hollow that built furniture for local shelters. We'd load up the van with benches and bed frames, then deliver them to a place downtown called the Renewal House. It was run by a retired pastor named Marvin, a man with hands like bark and eyes like light. "You a craftsman?" he asked me one afternoon as I sanded the edge of a table. "Just an old man with time," I said. He smiled. "That's exactly what we need around here. Old men with time and patience." Working there filled something in me that money never could. Each table, each chair we built, carried a bit of redemption in its grain. I started staying late, fixing broken pieces that others thought were beyond saving. There was something healing about it, turning splintered wood into something whole again. One day, Marvin handed me a worn-out rocking chair with a cracked leg. "Think you can save it?" he asked. I ran my hand along the wood, feeling the fracture. "Yeah," I said softly. "Just needs the right kind of glue and a little time." He grinned. "Ain't that the truth about everything?" That evening, back at my home, I sat on the porch and called Miss Freeman. "Angela Freeman," she answered briskly, her voice as composed as ever. "It's Isaiah," I said. "Just wanted to thank you again for everything." "Isaiah, you don't owe me thanks," she said. "You did the hard part yourself. How's life treating you in the desert?" "Peacefully," I said. "I even got a new hobby, fixing things that used to be broken." She chuckled. "Sounds like therapy." "It is," I said, "but cheaper." We talked for a few more minutes about our upcoming cases, about how the Thompsons had already repainted my old house sky blue. When we hung up, I felt lighter, like a man whose life had stopped being about endings and started being about continuance. Later that night, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. "Hello," I said. "Grandpa." It was Kayla. Her voice was softer than I remembered, cautious. I hope it's okay that I called," she said. "Mom told me where you were." "It's okay," I said. "How are you?" "I'm trying," she said. "I got a job at a diner in Savannah. I'm saving money to get my own place." "That's good," I said. "Work's the best teacher there is." There was a pause, then she whispered, "I miss Grandma." "So do I said quietly. "Every day." We talked for almost 20 minutes, about her job, about how she'd started sketching again, about her plans for school. She didn't apologize outright, but she didn't have to. Sometimes change speaks for itself. Before hanging up, she said, "Grandpa, do you hate Mom?" I took a deep breath. "No, sweetheart. Hate's too heavy to carry where I'm going." "Where's that?" she asked. I smiled. "Forward." After the call, I sat for a long time staring at the stars. The desert sky was vast, full of quiet. Somewhere in that endless stretch of black, I imagined Laverne smiling. In the weeks that followed, letters from Monique came more regularly. Shorter ones this time. Updates about her trying to find work. About Kayla visiting on weekends. About Darius leaving. I didn't always respond, but I read every one. Each word felt like a small step toward something resembling redemption. One Sunday in late July, I received a photo tucked into an envelope. It was of Monique and Kayla, standing outside a small apartment building, smiling shyly at the camera. On the back, Monique had written, "Starting over. Thought you should know." I placed the photo beside Laverne's letter and smiled. That evening, I joined the other residents for the weekly potluck at the community hall. The tables were lined with casseroles and pies, and the air smelled of cinnamon and laughter. Clara handed me a plate and said, "You look different these days, Isaiah. Lighter." "Maybe I am," I said. "Guess I finally figured out what peace costs." "And what's that?" "Letting go of what doesn't love you back." She nodded, smiling. "Sounds like you've earned your rest." Later, as I walked back to my home under the dim glow of the lamplights, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about erasing what happened. It was about choosing to live beyond it. When I got inside, I opened my notebook once more and wrote, "Peace sounds like we're being mended. Like laughter in a place that used to echo with pain. Like a phone call you never thought you'd get, but you do." Then I closed it, turned off the light, and sat in the dark, the sound of crickets drifting through the open window. In the quiet, I could almost hear Laverne's voice, soft, steady, and proud. "You did good, Zay. You came home." And for the first time since she left, I truly believed her. August came blazing into Scottsdale, the kind of heat that makes the air shimmer like glass. By then, I'd been living in Juniper Hollow for nearly 4 months, and the rhythm of the desert had become my own. Morning walks before the sun got mean, iced tea by noon, woodworking in the late afternoon light. Life had finally found its steady pulse again. Still, every so often, I'd wake before dawn with a strange tug in my chest, that old ghost of restlessness whispering, "You're not finished yet." One morning, that whisper turned into a decision. I packed a small bag, tucked Laverne's locket in my pocket, and set out before sunrise, the Buick humming beneath me like an old friend. The road stretched east toward Atlanta, long and empty, the skies softening from indigo to gold. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even Miss Freeman or Clara. This wasn't a trip for updates. It was a trip for closure. The miles rolled by like thoughts I'd already made peace with. Somewhere past Montgomery, I stopped for gas and stretched my legs. The air smelled faintly of pine sap and rain. A man at the next pump nodded politely, and for a moment, I thought how different I must look now, calm, shoulders back, eyes clear. Not the man who'd been cornered in his own home a year ago. By early evening, I was back in Atlanta. The city looked both familiar and strange, new buildings glinting between the old ones, cranes swinging like metronomes of progress. I drove past places that used to matter. The church where Laverne sang in the choir, the diner where we'd go for peach pie on Sundays, the park bench where I'd once proposed. Finally, I turned down West End Avenue. The house stood there just as I remembered, though the shutters were now painted sky blue and a new flower bed lined the walk. A swing hung from the oak tree where Monique once played. It looked alive again, like the house itself had moved on. A car was parked in the driveway. The Thompsons, the young couple who'd bought it. I didn't plan to bother them, but curiosity led me closer. Before I could even reach the gate, the front door opened. A man stepped out, Marcus Thompson, if I remembered right. "Mr. Carter?" he said, surprised but smiling. "Well, I'll be. Miss Freeman told us you might stop by someday." "I hope it's not a bad time," I said. "Not at all. Please come in." I hesitated only a moment before following him inside. The house smelled different, fresh paint, lavender, something new baking in the oven. Lena, his wife, waved from the kitchen, apron dusted with flour. "It's so good to finally meet you," she said. "You built a beautiful home." I looked around. The furniture was new, the colors lighter, but the bones of the place were the same. The living room had laughter again. I could feel it in the walls. Marcus handed me a glass of water. "We've been meaning to thank you," he said. "The neighbors told us about what you went through here. Took courage to stand your ground." I smiled faintly. Courage or desperation? Hard to tell the difference sometimes. He laughed softly. "Well, whatever it was, it gave this place a second chance. We love it here." I nodded, then asked, "Would you mind if I walked around for a minute?" "Take your time," he said. "This'll always be your house in some way." I walked through each room slowly. The scratches on the floor were gone, the walls repainted, the cracks sealed. In the hallway, a framed quote hung where the old family photo used to be. "What you repair, repairs you." I stopped at the bedroom doorway, the same room where Laverne used to hum herself to sleep. I could almost see her there, light from the window brushing her cheek, eyes soft and amused at whatever nonsense I'd been saying. I whispered, "It's okay, baby. It's all right now." When I came back to the living room, Marcus and Lena were standing by the door, smiling gently. "Thank you," I said, "for taking care of it." "Thank you," Lena said. "It feels like love never left this place." On my way out, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small wooden carving, a bird with open wings I'd made in the workshop. "A gift," I said, handing it to her. "For good luck." She accepted it with both hands, eyes bright. "It's beautiful." As I walked back to the car, the evening light poured through the trees, just like it used to. I paused at the end of the driveway, looked back one last time, and smiled. The past wasn't chasing me anymore. It was resting, right where it belonged. Before leaving Atlanta, I made one more stop. The cemetery on the south side hadn't changed much. The oaks still cast long shadows across the rows of headstones. I parked beneath one and carried a small bouquet of white lilies to Laverne's grave. Her name was still etched deep and clean into the stone. Laverne E. Carter, 1954 to 2022. Beloved wife, healer, dreamer. I knelt, brushing away a few fallen leaves. "Hey, Vern," I said softly. "I saw the house today. Looks good. Young couple moved in. You'd like them." The wind stirred through the trees, soft and slow, like an answer. I told her about Monique's letters, about Kayla's new job, about the woodworking and the quiet. I told her about how the world felt lighter now, how I'd finally learned what she meant in that letter. Be slow, be smart, be firm. I told her I'd done all three. Then I took the locket from my pocket, opened it one last time, and looked at the note inside. The paper had aged, the ink fading at the edges, but the words were still there. Atlanta Federal Credit Union, Box 1936. The secret that had started everything. You were always thinking ahead, I said. Always looking out for me. I smiled, then set the locket gently on her grave. I didn't need to keep it anymore. The real treasure wasn't gold or hidden money. It was what she taught me. To fight for peace and to forgive without surrender. I whispered, "Rest easy now, Vern. I'm okay." The wind picked up again, carrying the scent of lilies and rain. By the time I got back to Scottsdale 2 days later, the air was dry and golden again. Walt was waiting on my porch with a grin. "Where you been, old man?" he said. "We thought you skipped town." "Just want to say goodbye to someone," I said. He nodded. "Goodbye's important. So's coming back." That evening, we worked side by side in the shed, sanding a new table for the renewal house. The wood was rough but solid. "You ever think about writing all this down?" Walt asked. "You got a story worth telling." I smiled. "Already started." When I got home, I opened my notebook one last time. On the final page, under the heading "What Peace Sounds Like," I wrote, "It sounds like forgiveness whispered to a grave. Like laughter echoing in a house you've let go of. Like the sound of your own heartbeat when you finally realize it's enough just to keep living." I closed the notebook, set it beside the wooden box on my nightstand, and turned off the light. The room glowed faintly from the moon through the window, silver and still. Somewhere outside, a coyote howled, a lonely, beautiful sound that didn't frighten me. I smiled into the dark. After all the storms, the silence didn't scare me anymore. It was home.